good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome once more to another video podcast of Political News Time, here exclusively on the PNT Live Network. Now, normally I do this podcast at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I wound up getting into a little something last night, so I couldn't do it last night. So to make up for it, I figured I would come on this morning, specifically because also I want to make an announcement in regards to my taking this podcast in a bit of a different direction due to a little bit of an incident that occurred on my social media last night. And it wasn't just the incident from last night that has led me to this decision. Even before I restarted or relaunched this particular podcast, my political views were shifting a bit. How I feel about just simply being a human being has started to shift dramatically, in part due to my being completely free and clear of nicotine and alcohol since September 26th of 2019. So last night, something occurred that I'm just going to define as the straw that broke the camel being me's back. Because I came to realize that the individuals who I thought I was effectively appealing to, who I thought I was effectively educating, who I thought found my news commentary podcast interesting, I realized due to Facebook social media last night that not only are these podcasts not appreciated, but individuals who I'm trying to appeal to would rather me just stand there and look pretty and shut up than talk and share what's on my mind, my views, and what I know, what I've experienced in life. Before I read the particular comments that I received on this particular podcast, I do want to make it clear that I put a lot of work into this podcast on my own dime, all by myself. Nobody helps me with this podcast, and this podcast has grown due to my efforts, not just with this podcast, but podcasts I did in the past. I mean, whenever I have a little extra dime, I try to do something to improve the podcast. And if you look at this podcast, you can see it. Look at how good this looks. Other people, do you see them have a nice little background like this who are talking about politics? Probably not. Look at the lighting. It's not cheap. The sound, pretty nice, isn't it? Graphics. Not many people have this going on, and it's because it takes work, effort. These podcasts don't just happen. I put a few hours every day into these podcasts, between shooting them, doing the editing. I do all my own technology, web work, whatnot. I'm a freaking genius. And the people I'm trying to appeal to can't appreciate this, so I'm just over it. I'm over it. But let me just go ahead and read to you what I'm talking about, because it made me upset. It made me very upset. Now, let me just backtrack a little bit. Aside from doing Political News Time, I'm also an artist, a visual artist. I'm also a musician. But right now, I'm really delving into my visual art, and I have an OnlyFans for my painting. It's not nude. Everyone thinks OnlyFans is for adult content. It's not. There's a legitimate artist on there, such as myself. So let me show y'all something. All right. So yesterday, I put together a podcast for the production of this particular painting, right? For my OnlyFans. So I created a video of the art production process, and I post it online along with a preview so that people can see my art and whatnot, right? So here's one of the comments I received when it came to that art podcast, and this was on Facebook from someone named TJ Johnson. Sorry to be off topic, But I have to admit, with the extra weight that you have, you look good. That's a veiled insult. Someone calling me fat. I ain't fat. Is this fat? I'm not as skinny as I used to be, but I'm far from fat. This looks fat to you? Really? Okay. But that's not all. Roni Irvin says, this is a better look for you than the news podcast to me. So in other words, he was like, well, I like looking at you, painting, being quiet, but I don't like hearing you talk. In other words, saying, I'd rather just see you and not hear you. Both of these men appear to be African American. I looked at their profiles. Yes, both are black men, real people, not Russian bots. And that's when it occurred to me. I've been wasting my time trying to advocate for and support Black Lives Matter. Because who is Black Lives Matter really for? Black men. But when I really think about it, my entire life, for the most part, black males have not exactly treated me that great. Why? I don't know. What have I done to black males to attract such poor treatment? Nothing I can think of. Nothing I can think of. But I've never received really a lot of support from black men. Never have. Nothing I ever do has ever been good enough. Nothing I ever say, I ever get a thank you in regards to. Nothing. Nothing. To the majority of black men, my life does not seem to matter unless they feel that they can get something from me. That's just how I feel. Or unless I'm forgiving them for their bad behavior, which is something that Candace Owens gets into, to where honestly, when I first heard it, I don't think my mind could take it. But the more I listen to her, the more I think to myself, you know what? She's saying things that I dared not to say when I was younger. You know, it could just be that I'm at a certain age right now. I'm 41 years old, and you know, maybe there's this maternal part of me that wishes I had a little girl. And I look at Candace Owens and I think to myself, man, if I had a little girl, maybe she would be something along those lines. So I just feel something towards, you know, that draws me toward her. That could be in part what it is, but I don't think it is. I think what it is that she's a part of the evolutionary process that's occurring within the black community that's been long overdue, and it's an evolutionary process that I personally am going to support. If you go over to pornnewstoday.com, you will see her banner front and center on that website, not because she has anything to do with the adult entertainment industry, but I think that there's a lot of motherfuckers out there who normally would not come across her, who would visit that website, who would see her and be like, let me check out what Candace Owens is about, because I want her mindset to become far more normalized in the black consciousness, in America's consciousness. I want her look to become something that's far more just seen as, hey, that's something that's attractive. Yeah, because I'm sorry, but what's going on in the black community right now, from my standpoint, it's just like, how far are you going to go, black community, when it comes to trying to make the lowest common denominator appealing? Seriously. Why are you promoting physical appearances that, truth be told, do not reflect good health? Why, in the year 2020, are we still pushing hair extensions? Why are we still glorifying black women who usually are just as much another ethnicity as they are black? Meanwhile, in the black community, we're looking at girls like Candace Owen and we're giving them the boot. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because what she's talking about when it comes to that Democratic plantation, that metaphor, it's real. I saw it in the adult entertainment industry and it is alive and well, and I'm sick of it. I've been screaming from the rooftops for a long time that adult entertainment industry is no more than a modern day pre-Civil War slave plantation. And it is. And that world is nothing more but a microcosm than what is going on in mainstream America today. I mean, I have to live in a goddamn country to where everywhere I turn, there's this energy that's trying to brainwash me to believe that I have no choice but to be a Democrat and to bow down and submit to a mentality that doesn't make me feel good about myself, that makes me doubt myself, that is essentially holding me back from reaching my full potential, that is glorifying latently, quietly closet racists who are using the guise of being progressive liberals who are prancing out their tokens, meaning token blacks, at every chance they get. Meanwhile, when his voice is like mine coming out, nothing but oppression and suppression. How do I know this? The reality of a creature. I'm not even gonna, there's another word I would like to use, but I'm not gonna use a creature known as Alana Evans in the adult entertainment industry. Democrat. Told a testimony, which I question the validity of, that essentially backed up the testimony of another woman who had the intent on taking down our current president. She's being, heralded, and honestly, she really truly is a racist. Talentless. Her only skill is laying on a bed and spreading her legs. And that's something that's celebrated. Meanwhile, you have someone such as myself who has completely rebuilt their life outside of the adult entertainment industry, and then on top of that, put their life at risk by taking on the realities that are organized crime and sex trafficking. And yet I'm condemned and told that I should sit down and shut up and just paint and forget my news commentaries? Really? Just to conclude, today I'm making a solid change. I'm going to go through the process of registering as a Republican rather than being a Democrat any longer, because if I stay a Democrat any longer, I think that I'm going to vomit. I'm sorry, Barack and Michelle Obama. You will always hold a special place in my heart, and I mean that with the utmost sincerity. But I cannot support Black Lives Matter anymore, because Black Lives Matter does not truly believe that who I am matters. I said it on a previous podcast, so I'll say it here, but I'm going to expand. On a previous podcast, I stated that one of the main things holding me back from becoming a Republican was an individual known as Steve Bannon. Someone who, as of current, I believe to be a white supremacist. However, this morning, I thought the following thought. Who's really more detrimental to my well-being? Steve Bannon or young Black American men? So rather than running away from Steve Bannon, I am going to start reading his material. I am going to explore who he is as a person. Things I find interesting, I will share with all of you. Because I feel like if Candace Owens can somehow find it within to sit down and conduct an interview with Steve Bannon and even Scott Baio, then maybe, just maybe, there is something about these individuals that I either am overlooking or don't know about yet. But again, goodbye, Democrats. I hope that everything works out for you, but you have lost me.